there are four major core components of Tomcat. Apache Tomcat consists of several key components that work together to provide Java web server capabilities. So what are the core components? One is Catalina, which is also called as a servlet container. And the other one is Coyote. It is a connector service. Jasper. Jasper is a JSP engine. And the other module is valves and realms. That provides you with security features and logging mechanism. All right. So let us first see the overview. Then we will understand in a real time how the request is processed by each and every core component of Tomcat. So basically, Catalina, it is a servlet container and it implements the servlet specifications and handles lifecycle mapping and servlet execution. So we have seen dynamic web applications are developed using the web resources called servlets and JSPs. So what is Catalina? Catalina is the core engine and it is also called as servlet container. So this Catalina, which is a servlet container, this is responsible for handling the life cycle of servlet execution process. So basically, in simpler words, so Catalina does all the hard work. What hard work? The heavy lifting, the execution process. It executes your request, either it is a servlet or a JSP. It executes and generates the response. And that response is sent back to the client. So there is Coyote. It is a HTTP connector. So what exactly it does? It listens for incoming HTTP requests and passes them to Catalina for execution. So whenever there is a request that is hit to the Tomcat service, then the Coyote, which is the connector, HTTP connector, it receives the incoming HTTP request and sends it to the Catalina to execute. So it is just a mediator that receives the request and sends it to the Catalina. And there is component called Jasper and Tomcats. It is a Tomcats JSP engine. And we know that JSP is a web resource. It is Java server pages. It Jasper, what it does is it compiles the JSPs into servlets. Why? Because Catalina can only execute servlets. So whenever there is a JSP request, then Jasper comes into picture. Coyote will receive the request and it will send it to Catalina directly if it is a servlet. But if it is a JSP, Coyote will send it to Catalina and again Catalina to Jasper so that Jasper will compile the JSPs into servlets. And this servlet is sent to Catalina for execution. Now, connectors. So they handle client-server communication over different protocols. So why AJP? So we'll discuss about AJP, Apache JSON protocol. And this is used if you have a reverse proxy or a HTTP server in the front end that is routing or proxying the request to your Tomcat service. So you can you can either use AJP protocol for configuration on reverse proxy, or you can use directly HTTP as well. But AJP is mostly preferred because it is very fast compared to HTTP protocol. So these connectors, they handle the client and server communication over these protocols. And valves and filters, they provide request filtering and interception of for security and login. So uh, each and every request, it is not directly executed by Catalina or directly it is received by Coyote, but your request may be something that contains the username and password validation, right? So authentication is required. Now here, the security comes into picture. And also simultaneously, the logs have to be added with server messages and application related data that is processed by your Tomcat service. So that is taken care by valves and filters. So let us understand the request processing flow. Client request, it is sent to Tomcat over HTTP or HTTPS. Coyote, it accepts the request using an appropriate connector. It can be either HTTP or AJP. And request mapping. So map to a specific web application via Catalina. How this is mapped? It is mapped based on the context root of your application and the virtual host, right? So it can be local host for local environments, or it can be a fully qualified domain name. So however, you configure on Tomcat using virtual host block. And pipes and valves. So interceptors like logging, security, or URL rewriting. Meaning what? If there are some rules you want to apply on the application, on how to access the application with a particular URL, those can be applied and can be operated here once the request mapping is done based on the context root. So once everything is done till step 4, the servlet is executed. The request is dispatched to the correct servlet or JSP for compilation. As discussed here, it compiles the JSPs into servlets for execution. Now, once the servlet is executed, response is generated. So this is the output of your request. Servlet generates the response and the response is sent. So generated HTML response sent to connector. Which connector? These are the connectors. So if there is a Apache in the front end, the generated response is sent via AJP protocol to Apache, and Apache will send the response back to the client, right? So this is it. A generated HTML response sent to the connector and then sent to the client. So let us understand with this illustration. So this is a client side. Client request via browser or any API service sending a request to your Tomcat service. So this entire thing is your Tomcat service. So it includes multiple components. So once the request is sent, it is received by the Tomcat connector. All right. So it is received by the Tomcat connector. So the connector contains this Coyote connector. So Coyote, what is Coyote? It accepts the incoming request with an appropriate connector. So what exactly is connector? It handles a client-server communication over different protocols. So if it is a client, the HTTP request is sent to the Tomcat connector, and Coyote connector, it parses the HTTP request. So why it parses? Because based on the URL and the host header of the request, the HTTP request is parsed and it is sent to the Catalina. Catalina being the main engine and the servlet container, all the pipelines and valves will come into picture doing their work in the background. security checks and logging. And there is a request mapping based on the context route. If there are multiple applications deployed on this Tomcat service, let us say app 1 and app 2 and app 3. So at when the request is passed, it is sent to the Catalina, and here the request mapping is validated. So based upon app 1, 2, or 3, the respective application will be respective request will be mapped with the servlet of a particular application, uh, like app 1 with the context root, and the servlet is picked up. Servlet class is picked up and executed by your Catalina. And if it is a servlet, it is directly executed. For example, there is a hello servlet. So it is executed and it generates the response. The response is returned to the Coyote connector. Why? Because the connector, what is it? The connector handle client server communication over HTTP or AJP. So once the Coyote receives the response, it is the same response is sent back to the client. So now we have discussed about servlet. So what if it is a JSP? So based on the context and the requested URL, if it is a JSP, it is sent to Jasper JSP engine. So what is the role of a Jasper? It will compile the JSPs to servlets because the Catalina understands only the servlets. So once it is compiled, it is sent to the servlet. Compiled servlet is sent to the servlet wrapper, Catalina basically. So the compiled servlet is executed by Catalina, and again the response is generated and it is sent to the connector, and the connector will send the response back to the client. So this is the overall workflow, the internal workflow, how each and every core component of Tomcat uh, work towards serving the request based on the type of request and based on the type of application and the context route. All right. So here, yeah, Catalina implements the servlet container specification. It manages servlet lifecycle. It will initiate, it will do the service, and then destroys the objects. So it hosts web applications under web apps directory. So simply you can copy your WAR file under web apps directory of Tomcat installation. Coyote, this acts as a connector, and when it comes to HTTP protocol 1.1 and 2, which is the latest one, are supported by Tomcat 10, and AJP is also supported for request proxying. And it transfers the request data to Catalina, and it also can run standalone embedded mode. So this is something that is used in the enterprise applications. Uh, so we need not to worry about it. This is mostly used by the developers. And Jasper is a JSP compiler that converts the JSP files into Java servlets. And it also supports different libraries and expression languages. So dynamically, it recompiles the JSPs when updated. So we'll understand what exactly is this in a while. So how it works, JSP converts to, compiles to servlet, and once the compilation is done, so in the compilation, what happens, the .java class is compiled into .class, which is a bytecode, and this bytecode can be used on any platform. So how it is compiled using the Java compiler under JDK. Expression language, yeah, it allows embedding dynamic values like username into JSPs. So something that happens dynamically. Auto recompile, yeah, if there is a JSP file that is changed, Jasper automatically recompiles it on the fly, meaning you don't have to redeploy again. So real-time use case, let us take a scenario like there is a corporate web application and it is an internal web application like a dashboard.jsp for employees to view their attendance and project details, right? So it is a personal dashboard used in the company. It is an internal web application. So a user accesses the dashboard.jsp via browser and Jasper detects the JSP file. So when a JSP file is detected, it converts the JSP into Java servlet. So it is converted into dashboard.java. And Tomcat executes the compiled servlet and then generates a dynamic HTML response. So in case if the dashboard.jsp is updated with any changes, so frequently there will be enhancements or any corrections or any updations. So in this case, Jasper recompiles it automatically. So no need to restart your Tomcat every time JSP file is modified. All right. So advantage of this is the advantage of Jasper, uh, which converts, which recompiles the changes in the JSP file without needing to restart Tomcat every time or redeploying the application every time. So this can come in the interview. What is Jasper in Tomcat and how is it useful? You can, uh, you know, you can elaborate the same that we discussed.